Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to our podcast. We are 4 weeks away, almost 4 weeks away today from elections in Rapides Parish. And in Pineville specifically, we're going to be talking a little bit about that this morning. There's a real possibility for a sea change over there in the political landscape in terms of the personalities and the people who you will elect to serve you. And this is one of those times when all of the city council seats in Pineville are contested. There are more than one individuals running for the offices. All of them except one over there is a contested election. Also, it's going to be a time when the citizens over there are going to be able to confirm or reject some interim appointments over there. The mayor and I think two of the city council positions were appointed, so those are interim. And so, listen, it's really important for you to vote. It's one of the most wonderful rights that we have. And so I just encourage you to be involved in that process and vote. The current mayor, Joe Bishop, is appointed. He's up for election. And two other city councilmen, District 1, Randy O'Neill, and District 4, John Marcase. Is that how you pronounce that?
That's right, yes, sir.
They are up for election as well. You could consider them the incumbents, but they were appointed and have not faced an election yet for those positions. So a lot of possibilities. Is exciting. And today I'm so delighted to welcome my friend Nathan Martin, Brother Nathan Martin, who is retiring, slowing down, and finishing 6 terms as city councilman for District 5 in the city of Pineville. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
And by the way, what year did you start?
2003 is when I was first elected in a special election to fill the unfulfilled term of Councilman Randy King, who had died in office just 7 months into his term.
Wow.
And so,
and who was the mayor then?
Mayor Clarence Fields.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. So he's finishing 6 terms. And I don't know, are those 2-year terms?
4-year terms.
So that's almost 2 decades. It is 2 decades of public service. And, you know, a lot of times we call folks like Brother Nathan, we call them politicians, but in reality, they are servants to the public. And I know that's the spirit that you've done that in throughout the years. And Brother Nathan is also the pastor of Christian Challenge Church in Pineville, and been doing that for how many years?
I've been senior pastor for 20 years. I was associate 16 before that.
Yeah.
And then I was a missionary in Mexico 4 years before that.
My. So just a question here at the beginning. Those gray hairs, is that from the city council or is that from the pastorate or a combination?
I'm sure it's a combination of all. My wife and I also 13 years ago adopted 2 children from South America. And I didn't have many gray hair when we adopted them either. So I think
Yes,
you
sir.
put all 3 of them together. God gives young children to young parents for a reason. We were pushing 50 when we adopted.
Wow.
And seemed like a good idea at the time.
What a change.
But it's been great. Yeah, it's been
wonderful.
a blessing to get to see them grow up in addition to our 3 other children.
Well, in addition to those things that Brother Nathan's been involved in through the years, this man is everywhere. I was at the hospital at Rapides General Hospital just this past week, walking up one of the main corridors, and lo and behold, looked up, and there Brother Nathan was looking down on me through a photograph. He has served as chairman of the board of directors for Rapides Regional Medical Center. Are you still doing that?
Yes, sir. I'm what's called the immediate past chair for the next 2 years.
Okay, so you're going to continue to do that.
Right.
He's also a member of, or has been a member, and I assume he still is a member of the Rapides Parish Planning Commission. And I want to have him on at some point in the future. And we're just going to have a session just on the Planning Commission. And you can explain all of the ins and outs of the Planning Commission for us. But he has been involved in the community there for years and years, pastorally and politically. And Brother Nathan, I just want you to know there's going to be a big wake in your absence, a wake of influence that I think is, from my perspective, is broad and it's going to be deep for years to come. So let me thank you for coming and being here and coming all the way out in the wilderness of Judea to film the podcast and be with us this morning. It's a blessing and it is a privilege. And I want to begin where I think it's important, especially as pastors and believers, for us to begin, because that's where our lives really begin,
Right.
is when we meet the Lord
Right.
and find His purpose and His will for our lives. And I think it would be very encouraging just for people to hear how you became a part of the faith, a believer. And I'm really excited about pastors and their call and how they ended up being in the ministry and doing really the best job on earth as being a pastor to me. And so just start there if you would and share from your heart kind of how you came from being
Sure.
a pastor and then to be a public servant for all these years.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm honored that you would invite me. Thank you. I've enjoyed several of your previous episodes, and I have a little bit similar testimony. I was listening to your interview with Danny George, and his Pentecostal upbringing. I was raised in a Pentecostal church. My dad was a Pentecostal pastor and evangelist, and I came to faith as a young fella, 5 years old. I made a public profession of faith, was baptized, and was grateful for that heritage. My father left the Pentecostal church over some issues that he wrestled with, some doctrinal issues that he felt salvation issues, and still loved that heritage. Thank God for it. But when you had that disagreement, he didn't feel like he could continue pastoring and evangelizing. So he pastored an independent church, Mora. It's now called Mora House of Prayer. It used to be Mora Free Pentecostal Church. And then he started our church, Christian Challenge, in 1976, just a couple of weeks before I turned 11 years old. So
he began the church.
He began the church, yes, sir, in 1976. And so I grew up in that church. And as a teenager, I sensed a call to ministry. I was known in high school as Preacher Man. Everybody called me Preacher Man. They knew back then we didn't have school uniforms, and so I would wear Jesus is Lord or Praise the Lord, Christian T-shirts back then. And president of the Fellowship of Christian Students. I started a band Bible study. I just had this drawing in my heart to ministry. And I attended Louisiana College for a season, and then had this just sincere desire. I couldn't place it other than I'd made multiple trips to Mexico on short-term trips and felt like that's where I was supposed to be. So I transferred to a school in South Texas called Kingsway Missionary Institute. And that's where I graduated. That's where I met my wife. She's from South Texas. And then after I came back for a year, assisted my dad. We were building the current facility in Pineville. And then I took off in December of 86 to go to South Mexico. And I spent several years down there starting churches. And I still go back every year. We have a whole network of churches down there that we oversee. And I do leadership development and encouragement. And then I work in northern Mexico with a children's home for about 30 years now, that we take 2 trips a year. And I've taken hundreds and hundreds of people to have an exposure to mission. So that was the background. And when I came back from Mexico at the end of 1990 to join my father as his associate pastor, I knew I wanted to be involved in the community. I wanted to serve. I felt like as Christians, we need to demonstrate our faith, not just in witnessing. Obviously, we need to be constant witnesses in word, but also in deed. And so I looked for opportunities to serve in the community and volunteer in different activities that were taking place. I helped to organize. Some who've been around for a long time can remember the March for Jesus, which took place from, I think that was 94 to 2000. I helped organize that for several years. I helped with the Promise Keepers organization. I have been leading the National Day of Prayer event at Pineville City Hall since 1995, I think. And we have a great gathering of people that come every year on the National Day of Prayer, which is coming up right around the corner, first Thursday in May. And so I just was involved in the community in those ways. And I also felt like Christians needed to be involved in the political process. I didn't ever think that I would be a candidate for office, but I would support candidates that I felt like had the values that we needed to support. Because if good people pull away, then you leave a void, you leave a vacuum.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because through the years, even today, you still hear this from time to time, that preachers, and in a broader way, that Christians should stay out of politics. And I think I know what they mean by that. But if you look at the history of our country, preachers especially were so instrumental from their pulpit as well as in public life, being involved in the political process. So I appreciate you saying this. Matter of fact, that was one of the things I was going to ask you a little bit later about Christian involvement in that. So the church that you pastor, I heard you say that you were from, when you were converted and saved, you were from a more holiness background.
Right.
Do you still have strong ties to that?
Well, over the years, I hate to use the word evolved, but we've grown as a church in our understanding of the gospel, and we're probably we were more closely aligned with the Baptist faith now as far as our understanding of salvation and church polity and whatnot. But still, thank God so much for the holiness roots.
Sure. I appreciate it so much, and of course I was raised a Baptist from my mother's womb, really. Was in a Baptist church, but I have such respect for people that are involved and came up in the holiness side of our faith and everything, and I appreciate that. So, well, that's a wonderful testimony. Let me ask you this: when you ran for office, did you kind of see that as an extension of your faith and your pastoral ministry, perhaps?
Well, absolutely. I've used that exact phrase many times. It was an extension of my ministry. The reason I ran was I had supported a gentleman that was running for District 5 City Council, the seat that I currently hold. His name was Randy King, just a few years older than me, really neat guy. The gentleman who had held the seat before him, Lee J. Broussard, had been there for 20 some odd years and served faithfully. I think he passed away while in office, and his wife was appointed to serve out his term. Well, Randy was kind of their adopted son. He was just really close to their family. And so when he chose to run, I supported him. I actually designed his push card that he gave out to people. I thought he was a great candidate. And so he ran and was very successful in that race. Unfortunately, he took office July 1, and then in February, just 7 months later, he passed away. It was unexpected, had a heart attack, and it's a horrible loss for his family. But it left that void. I mean, there's still 3.5 years of that term left.
You were appointed to that?
No, I wasn't. Mrs. Broussard was appointed, who had served out her husband's term, so they went back to that. And I just offered myself up as a candidate. And there were 3 of us who ran in that race.
Have you ever lost a race?
No, thankfully. I've only had one race, to be honest with you, because I ran that race and was blessed to win in the primary, didn't have a runoff. And then, by the grace of God, I've not had an opponent in the subsequent 5 elections.
Wow. Well, you know, I will share this with you. To me, there's something exciting going on in Pineville. I don't know how really to describe that, but it seems to be that people are excited about the things that are happening there. There are a lot of businesses that are starting in Pineville.
Right.
We went just last week. See if I can think of the name of this. Palmetto Shave Ice. Listen, it's to die for. And my daughter-in-law had been hearing about that, and she said, I said, where is it? She says, it's over in Pineville. And really we went there. It's a wonderful place. It's kind of family-oriented. Just kind of looks like a mom and pop thing. But that whole area there seems to just be alive with things to do. And it was just exciting to me. I'm excited about what's happening over there and the future of Pineville. Looking back at 6 decades, what are you most proud of?
Oh, well, 6 terms, yeah. I don't know that I can say most proud of. There are so many things that stand out. I think if you look at what was in Pineville before I came into office, and I want to make sure I'm clear, I don't take credit for any of it. I'm fortunate to have been part of a team that worked really well together to bring success in Pineville. But when I first came into office, Lowe's wasn't there, the roundabout wasn't there, the Susek Drive was a very dangerous road. It's been completely rebuilt.
Exactly.
We have a new fire station, a new water tower. We actually have 2 new water wells that have been dug. We've doubled the capacity of the sewer treatment plant. I mean, there are just so many amazing things over the years that a true team of leaders, Clarence Fields being the quarterback, so to speak, and then the council members that I served with, we all had that vision of what's good for the city is good for my district. So if you need something in your district, I'm going to vote for it. If it blesses your district, and most of our votes were 5-0 votes. Every now and then you'd have a 4-1 or a 3-2, but I mean, I would say 98% of our votes were 5-0 votes because we worked hard to make sure that the people's needs were put first.
Well, it'd be wonderful if that could happen in Washington, that kind of a spirit. But, you know, when I was going to college, I took a political science class. And at that time, I remember my professor saying that there are only two schools of thought when it comes to political science and politics. One of them is that when you're elected to an office, you go there either to represent what you think is best, or the other school is you go there to represent the people and what they think best. And what does that sound?
Yeah, I heard you say that on a recent interview with one of the mayoral candidates, and I hear those schools of thought. I will tell you, I think there's a mixture of both, and that may put me in the appreciated count. But so what happens? You can't poll everybody all the time, so you have to make decisions sometimes based on just the information that's given to you.
Right.
Thinking about what the people you've talked to, you know, what their values are and what they want. But I can give you one example where I pushed for something that initially I got some pushback on, but since then has been overwhelmingly accepted. And that's the roundabout at the intersection of Susek Drive and Edgewood Drive, right by Pineville Junior High School.
It's nice up through there now.
When I began reading about roundabouts, I felt like they were tremendous tools for moving people effectively and efficiently through intersections. We in Central Louisiana had only experienced the North Traffic Circle and the South Traffic Circle, and both of those were horrible. Had nightmares about them. And so when we started talking about roundabouts, people were like, "No, we don't need another traffic circle." And I would try to explain, but this is different. It's much smaller, it's much more controlled, and I promise you, it's going to make the traffic flow much more smooth. I lived off Susek Drive, and if I tried to turn left in the morning, I might be there 10 minutes waiting for traffic to flow, to open up. And so we had some public hearings, and I think that I will honestly say that the majority of the people that came out were opposed to a roundabout, because they were opposed to traffic circles. But I did feel like it was the absolute best thing. And so that's one of the few times that I think I bucked what the sentiment was. And I actually have had many people come up to me later and say, "You were right. This was a good solution. It really fit, and it makes things work well." But I would never take pride in that. That's an anomaly. I think the far majority of the time you have to listen to, you know, what your people are saying, and try to understand their values. We're diverse. We're a diverse city, but you do need to represent and listen to. I don't think I kept track of every email and every phone call I ever received, and I think I returned every phone call. I believe I know I responded to every email except for the ones that went to spam that I didn't control. But I think being responsive is critical for any representative, any elected representative.
I think so. We just lost Sheriff Hilton, a tragic event in our community. I remember about him. He carried a 3x5 card in his pocket, and if somebody called him or asked him to call, he would write that. And before the day was over, he would have called them back. So I think service and contact and communication with your people is so vital. And you've been unopposed for all of your.
Yes, sir.
It's unheard of.
It's stunning. It really is. But you know, I think there was a special favor of God on Pineville in that season. If I can talk real bluntly, Mayor Fields was appointed as a mayor when Mayor DeLatte had resigned about a year and a half into that term. For some health reasons, and so when Mayor Fields was appointed, he was what's called the mayor pro tem. Every elected body appoints one of their members as the pro tempore, is the technical term. It's on a temporary basis. If the mayor is incapacitated or passes away or goes to the hospital or leaves the country, you got to have somebody to sign checks and make decisions until someone else can be appointed. So Councilman Fields at the time was the mayor pro tempore. And so they appointed him until a special election would be held. And then he won that special election. Now, the reason I say this is almost unheard of. Pineville's probably a 70% white town, and we have a black mayor who was appointed and then elected. He ran again. That was a special election in 2000. He ran again in 2002, won that election, and then I won in 2003. And ever since then, neither he nor I had opposition.
Wow.
And for a small town, southern town, majority white, to have a black mayor, he also had 5 unopposed terms. And I think it just said something about what the people saw. To me, it was the fulfillment of that age-old quote, to be judged for the content of your character and not the color of your skin.
Right.
So, but there was something special about the hand of God on Pineville, and I'm grateful to have just been a part of that.
Well, that's wonderful. Let me ask you something that probably doesn't pertain a lot to Pineville or within the city limits of Pineville. It's a big, big issue here in our area, in other parts of Louisiana. The whole idea, and I know we're supposed to be good stewards of God's creation, and we're to use, yet He's given it to us to use and to benefit from as well. Carbon capture. Any thoughts about that?
Well, it doesn't affect Pineville in the sense that there's nothing proposed in the corporate limits of Pineville. So as a body, we've not taken a stand. I understand there's very large competing forces on either side of the issue. I think carbon capture and carbon sequestration are 2 separate entities that sometimes get combined together.
Right.
And I think most people don't have a problem with carbon capture. It's the sequestration, it's the putting it back into the ground where a lot of people are struggling with. If we could capture it and turn it into, carbon dioxide for our soda pop or for products that could be used, most people would probably be 100% okay with it being repurposed.
Right.
But it's the putting it back into the ground that's causing so much concern. And I think those concerns need to be heard and listened to. I've attended probably 6 public meetings, several by some of the local groups, and then one that the state put on. I've done as much reading as I can to try to understand and get my mind around it. I know we've been using the CO2 in wells for quite some time, to, to fracking and getting that last bit that's in there. I'm just going to be real frank. I think it's coming whether we want it or not, because I think the forces that be on the upper levels of the government are going to make sure it comes. But I think these voices need to continue to be heard, and people who have strong concerns about it should continue to speak out. And that is what will cause even more safety protocols and oversight and things. Unfortunately, industries, I won't say unfortunately, but it's just how it is. Industry is very strong. The governor seems to be wholeheartedly behind it. And
I think one of the things that surprised me about it, and I've been to some of the public meetings, and I know kind of the 2 sides that are going head to head about that. Just the everyday local folks that have farms, or that have lived on their land, their parents, their grandparents before them lived there. And now they're finding, because there's even talk of these carbon lines going in the ground, going to other places to store it, are going to be near their land, that they're already having talk about the value of their property. They're going to have trouble selling their land and that kind of thing. So it's a big thing, and I'm like you. It looks like it's going to happen to some degree, in some way, but it's kind of frightening, and at the same time, we have nuclear plants in people's backyards almost, and we've had dangerous things like that that we've utilized. So
I was disappointed that the bill authored by Representative Mike Johnson failed.
Right.
That was going to outlaw eminent domain for these pipelines. I felt like that was a good bill. I thought Representative Johnson was bringing a strong bill. It had to me, had the best chance of slowing down or just putting some brakes or some safety guidelines and safety rails. And when it failed, I don't think that portends well for any of the other bills.
No, I think that killed it.
Yeah, but that was a good bill, and I really do wish that had passed.
Yeah, I listened to some of that dialogue on the television, but I could not figure out, the people that voted against that, were they actually there or were they absent? I
don't know the answer to that. I know it was a 4.5 hour long hearing, and I didn't listen to every bit of it. Uh, I assumed that they had to be present to vote. It felt like, though, that the people who voted for the bill are people who represent the districts that are most impacted by it, and the people who voted against it probably represent other parts of the state that it's not an impact on them. I hate to say that, but that's what it appears like. That
Yeah, I understand.
a city person would vote for something that a country folk might be against because it doesn't bother him, and that's a simplistic explanation of why it may have been that way. But to use eminent domain, that's such a sore subject, such a sore. We've never used eminent domain in the city of Pineville, and it would take a serious issue for us to have to do that. I think they did that when the Pineville Expressway was built years ago. Perhaps they did that. I don't know that for a fact. But
I would think
you
so.
can understand there's times you may have to. You have one holdout and everybody else is in agreement where you make sure he gets the market value of his property. That doesn't satisfy him completely, but you want to make sure he's not cheated. But to do this for private enterprise,
That doesn't seem constitutional. I'm not a lawyer. I know Toledo Bend, they used eminent domain when they built that reservoir, and there are legitimate purposes to use it. But it is kind of upsetting to folks.
Well, I can tell you on the radio show that I co-host, I'm on there 2 days a week. It's one of the number one calls we get is carbon capture and sequestration.
They call a lot about that.
A lot.
Yeah.
And I would say overwhelmingly 90% are opposed to it.
Right. Let's talk just a moment before we go about the future. I know for your future, you're going to invest in pastoral ministry.
Right.
I tell everybody that's one of the two best jobs on the planet is being a pastor, can be the most difficult as well, and being a grandparent.
Wow.
And I heard you say somewhere the other day that you're going to focus on they're wonderful, aren't they?
That's right, my grandkids and my church. You know, when I ran for city council, I was an associate pastor and bivocational, and so it didn't feel like a stretch. It was a little bit of a stretch because many pastors obviously do not. Some do, but not very many. But as an associate pastor, and then it was in my second term that my father had a bout with cancer and took a sabbatical, and then later decided to go ahead and fully retire. I think he was 66. And so then I stepped into that role of being senior pastor in 2006. Well, so I had to make a decision at the next election. It's one thing to run as an associate pastor. Do I continue to run as pastor? And I talked with our elders. We're an elder-led church. I talked with my parents. I talked with my wife, and everyone felt like it was something I could continue to do. And so I did that, for the next 14 years as both. But I can tell that there is a sense of divide, that it does pull on you. And I'm delighted to be able to now say 100% of my time and energy is going into ministry. And of course, to my grandkids, I want them to look into the stands and see Pawpaw when they're playing soccer and basketball.
Well, so many of our pastors, some of them listen to our program, are bivocational. I did that for 18 years. It was always the sense that the cake was half baked. The sermon needed more time. It is a very difficult kind of a thing. Speaking of preaching, what kind of preaching do you do?
I was listening to your conversation with Pastor Stuart Holloway, and like him, I'm more of a series. I really enjoy being in a series that gives you a direction to go, so you don't feel like you're just We do on Wednesday nights. We do verse by verse through the Scripture. We're in the Book of Romans right now, so we have that style of teaching on Wednesday nights. But Sunday morning, it's a little bit more topical, but it's driven by series. So right now, I did a series called "On the Way to the Cross," which was the several weeks leading up to Easter, the resurrection. And now my series continues on the way to Pentecost. And so that in between time, those 40, 50 days of what next and what do we do now? And the amazing teaching that Jesus gave while he unpacked the scriptures for them, but then also the waiting and devoting themselves to prayer. And it's really this series is devoted into becoming true disciples.
Yeah, I was sharing with Brother Stewart, at least from my perspective, that makes it a little easier on the preacher. If you know where you're going, you can collect things in your mind, and things just seem to come to you, illustrations and things that you can use in that way. So, well, Brother Nathan, thank you so much. And just say a word, if you would, about the men's retreats. That's a whole other thing, a Sin Law men's retreat. I know you've been involved in that, and I have as well.
Right.
And I just want to emphasize how good of a thing that is, I think,
Sure.
and I know that you've still serving in that capacity as well. So.
I'm leaving this afternoon for another one. So
To Toledo?
the Holy
Or is
Toledo
it Clare
Tea.
Springs?
It's at Clare Springs, but this one is targeting the Toledo Bend banks, basically, from Leesville up to Zwolle and everything on the east bank of the Toledo Bend. Brother, I've lost track. If I've done 10, 12 retreats, they have been, for me, a lifeline, personally refreshing, but it's also been such a blessing to our church. I think we've had 40 or 50 men go on these retreats. We've had 30 or 40 women go on these retreats over the last 3 years, 4 years. And there's not a single one that would tell you it was not worth their time or their investment to go to. It has created a sense of desiring to serve and realizing that your service has impact. People can go and see the gospel in a fresh way, hear examples of how the gospel truly changes hearts and lives, and it gives hope to people who may be stuck in a rut. And so that's why I keep going back. That's why I'm going back again today. And I serve in any way I can. I've asked them, and they're very gracious about this. I don't go as Pastor Nathan, I go as Nathan. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I'm in the kitchen. The last one I was the head of hospitality, which meant I was emptying trash bags and making sure the coolers were full of ice.
You're being a servant.
I want to serve those men that come so they can have the experience I had when I went.
Well, it's a great program, and I just encourage any pastor, anyone that's listening, to check into that and see about getting your men involved in that. It's a safe place, it's a transparent place, and it's a good place to go and just get deeper with the Lord Jesus Christ. And Brother Nathan, I appreciate you coming today and take just any word for any pastor out there. Maybe, a lot of times, I know through the years, pastors look back at their lives, maybe especially in small places, and they say, well, I've wasted my life. And that's why I'm so excited you leave a big wake of influence in your service to the community and your church, and just anything to encourage a pastor out there maybe that's listening.
Well, I know what it's like to be discouraged. I know what it's like to see the reports from all the churches around you and their big numbers and their baptism numbers and all that stuff, and to sit there and think, well, Lord, what's happening over here? I get that. But the scripture that keeps coming to mind is, do not grow weary in doing well, because you will receive a reward in due season. And so I would say to every pastor, what you do has eternal impact. You may not see that impact right this minute, but God measures that impact in eternity. And so every life that is touched, how many times have we said, if this just touches one, it's enough? But we don't act like we don't believe that sometimes.
Yeah, Dr. Holloway said that the other day. He said, take note of the small things, the small growth, the small change in somebody's life.
Yeah.
And he said that's where you can really hang in there and keep pushing on. So.
Well, I tell my people often, we're not going to change the world. Let's face it, we're a small church in a small town, in a small state. We're not going to change the world, but we can change the world of the next person that comes through those doors. We can change the world of the next person God brings into our life. And so I do believe in those small impacts to have big results. And I'm grateful for every faithful man of God that labors in the Word of God and takes that calling seriously. There are so many more of them than the ones that catch the headlines for doing something wrong. Right. So press on. As William Carey used to say, he said, when asked for the secret of his success, he says, I know how to plod. I know how to plod.
Yeah, Warren Wiersbe said that you have to keep plodding, keep praying, and keep preaching.
Amen.
And so that's a great goal. And thank you for finishing well.
Thank you, brother.
And we want to have you back sometime. One final thought, and then we're going to go. Any breaking news you want to share? You're going to be running for any other other office? Or?
No, not at all. I'm headed back to Mexico at the end of next month. I take twice a year, I take trips to Mexico, and I invite people to go with me. If anybody wants to have a experience in missions, we drive. When I go to South Mexico, I fly, but I go by myself or with my wife. But the North Mexico, we drive vans. I had Pastor Stuart Sasser in Philadelphia Baptist Church went with me back in the Christmas trip. I've had several local churches have gone with me, sent groups with me, and I love exposing especially teenagers. But brother, you don't have to worry about me running for anything. I mean, it would have to be the Lord had to use 2 sky riders in the sky to get me to do it again.
Well, folks, here's a great pastor from over in the Pineville area, Brother Nathan Martin. If you're looking for a good pastor, everybody needs a good pastor.
Amen.
And if you're looking for a good church home or a good pastor, check Brother Nathan Martin out. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.